Hi everyone, I am your host, Peter Zablocki, and you're listening to History Shorts. I hope everyone's having a great day so far, and thank you for making this show a small part of that. If you'd like to help me out with a small gesture, please leave History Shorts a rating or a review, and click that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. For sources and books used as the basis for these episodes, how to advertise on a show, and other information such as a list of our upcoming guests on the Conversation series, or a link to our Patreon account where you can listen to exclusive episodes not heard here, please visit www.historyshortspodcast.com. You could always shoot me an email at peter@historyshortspodcast.com. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate podcast listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the globe, all in one place. Download Podcast Republic now and take your podcast experience to the next level. Having said all of that, when the United States erupted into civil war in 1861, the battle lines did not just run between North and South. They ran through the heart of Indian country as well. Across the plains, forests, and frontier posts, Native American tribes were drawn into a war that was not their own, yet one that would shape the fate for generations. Some allied with the Union, others with the Confederacy. Some fought to protect their homelands. Others sought revenge for broken treaties or to gain advantage over rival tribes. But whether by treaty, survival, or conviction, thousands of Native Americans became soldiers, guides, and scouts during the Civil War. Here is the rest of their story.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
At the heart of this story were the Native American scouts, men who rode ahead of armies, crept through forests and ravines, interpreted unfamiliar terrain, and tracked both friend and foe with instincts honed over generations. They were indispensable in regions where the Union or Confederate regulars were blind: the vast rolling hills of Indian Territory, or modern-day Oklahoma, the pine thickets of Arkansas, the rugged Southwest, and the borderlands between Kansas and Missouri. In these places, the Civil War became a war of skirmishes, ambushes, and counterinsurgency, a type of fighting perfectly suited to Native scouts. But their role began not with strategy, but with a fateful decision: which side to fight for. For many Native nations, the war arrived as a new chapter in a long history of betrayal and displacement. Less than 3 decades had passed since the infamous Trail of Tears, when thousands of Cherokee had been forcibly removed from their ancestral lands to Indian Territory. Yet now, in the early 1860s, both the Union and Confederacy came courting their allegiance. Some tribes, still bitter from federal betrayals, aligned with the South. Others, especially tribal members who had adopted Christianity and European-style farming, saw alliance with the Confederacy as a way to maintain autonomy and keep slavery, which some tribal elites actually practiced within their territories. The Cherokee Nation itself was split into two. Chief John Ross, leader of the Cherokee majority, initially tried to keep his people neutral, but the Confederate government sent emissaries, offered money and arms, and promised respect for tribal sovereignty. Some leaders, such as Stand Watie, a charismatic Cherokee colonel and slaveholder, embraced the Confederate cause and raised a regiment of mounted rifles. Ross, under pressure and facing a divided nation, reluctantly signed a treaty with the Confederacy in late 1861. By then, Native warriors were already riding into battle. Throughout Indian Territory, regiments were formed composed entirely or predominantly of Native American fighters. The Confederacy organized them into brigades, often led by tribal leaders, such as Stand Watie's 1st Cherokee Mounted Rifles became one of the most effective and mobile units in the West. conducting raids, sabotaging supply lines, and fighting in dozens of engagements, including the Battle of Pea Ridge in March of 1862. At Pea Ridge, Native troops played a key role in the early phases of the battle, skirmishing in the woods of northern Arkansas and using guerrilla tactics to harass Union forces. Though the Confederacy ultimately lost the engagement, it marked one of the first times that large numbers of Native Americans appeared in pitched Civil War battle. Afterward, many Union officers complained that Cherokee warriors had scalped Union dead, a charge never fully verified but repeated widely in the press, fueling tensions and racialized fears. But Native American scouts were also not limited to the Confederate side. In Union-held Kansas, Missouri, and Indian Territory, federal officers sought out loyalist Native groups and individuals to serve as scouts and guides for the Union side. These men, often Seminole or Cherokee, loyal to Chief Ross, used their knowledge of terrain, language, and local politics to assist Union troops operating in regions riddled with Confederate bushwhackers and cavalry raiders. One such figure was Billy Bowlegs, a Seminole leader and Union scout who had once fought in the Seminole Wars of Florida and now returned to battle on the side of the federal government. Others included Lewis Downing, a Cherokee Baptist minister and staunch Unionist who helped organize pro-Union Cherokee units and provided intelligence on Confederate movements. Scouting in the Civil War was dangerous work. Scouts traveled in small groups or alone, moving ahead of the main force to locate enemy camps, monitor roads, and identify ambushes. Native scouts often doubled as interpreters and negotiators when dealing with civilians or neutral tribes. They rode through burning fields, crept across river fords at night, and left messages carved into trees or scratched into rocks. And because they did not wear regular uniforms, they were at constant risk of being shot as spies if captured. Union General James G. Blunt, commanding in Kansas and Indian Territory, relied heavily on Native scouts to navigate the region's tangle of creeks, woods, and prairie. He praised their speed, discipline, and fearlessness. In many cases, Native scouts saved entire Union columns from ambush by detecting subtle tracks or sensing the presence of enemy cavalry in the distance. These were skills that regular army never mastered. The most famous of all Native fighters in the Civil War was undoubtedly Stand Watie, who rose to the rank of Brigadier General, the highest rank held by any Native American in the conflict. Watie and his cavalry became legendary for their raids on Union supply lines, their daring ambushes, and their ability to vanish into the landscape. He led the men in the Battle of Cabin Creek and numerous other engagements, even as his own Cherokee Nation fractured further. But Stand Watie's fame came at a cost. By 1863, Chief John Ross had renounced the Confederacy and pledged loyalty to the Union, deeply dividing the Cherokee people. Families turned on each other. Villages split, guerrilla warfare broke out within the nation itself, with Unionist Cherokee fighting Confederate Cherokees in a bitter, fractured conflict. Stand Watie refused to surrender even after Robert E. Lee laid down arms at Appomattox. He held out for months, finally surrendering on June 23, 1865, the last Confederate general to do so. The war left Indian Territory in ruins. Towns were burned, fields abandoned, and tribal governments in disarray. Thousands of Native civilians, especially women, children, and the elderly, had died from disease, famine, or violence. The federal government, far from honoring the service of its Native allies, used the war's end as a pretext to renegotiate treaties. In many cases, tribes were forced to cede land, accept railroad construction, and abolish slavery within their borders, often with little compensation or support. Yet the legacy of Native scouts endured. Their service demonstrated the central, if uneasy, place that Native Americans held in the military history of the United States. Not as mere helpers or symbols, but as warriors, tacticians, and patriots in their own right. Their roles in the Civil War foreshadowed continued Native military service in every American conflict to follow, from the Indian Wars to World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and beyond. Thanks for listening.